welcome back to the Who Are You to Lead Anyway podcast. This is where we master the skills we need to navigate leadership and life more easily. This is episode 108. Can we just have a little bit of a moment? And today, okay, I could have a bit of a moment for myself. This is episode 108, and today I want to invite you along with me to explore the essence of leadership and the impact of everyday actions. So, for those of you who may not know me, I am your host, Cynthia Jameson, leadership, life, and career growth coach. And today we're going to dive into a topic that might seem small on the surface, but I think it's a cornerstone of effective leadership, which is this notion that, like, how we handle everyday interactions. So, I have a question for you. Have you ever experienced a moment where a seemingly small interaction left you feeling undervalued? Chances are you have. So today, I want to share an experience that highlights why every interaction matters and how it reflects on our leadership. So I want to share with you a little bit about an encounter that I had. I recently called to book a service that would have made my life a bit easier. However, the response that I got from the owner was quite surprising. They told me that it would be easier for everyone if I just came in instead of booking my service on the phone. So let's pause here for a moment. Now, as a leader, how would you interpret this response? I would be super curious to know, and I would love to hear from you because I'm just always interested on how other people view things. For me, it was a missed opportunity, a moment where a simple interaction could have reinforced trust and convenience, but instead left me feeling disregarded. So, this got me thinking about how crucial these small interactions are in leadership because leadership isn't just about big decisions or the strategic moves. It's just not. It's about who we're being and how we're showing up in every interaction, no matter how big, no matter how small, and all of the spectrum in between. And here's why these moments build or erode trust, credibility, and relationships. And those things impact every single thing that we do, especially in the context of business. So, after reflecting on this interaction, I made the decision to live and lead in alignment with my values. And so, what that looked like was me asking if they were open to some feedback. Now, in order for me to ask that, I needed to come in person to book my service, which I did. And they were open to receiving the feedback. And so I let them know the feedback that I had. I let them know how important customer service is to me. Customer service has always been a big deal in my life. My mom has been in hospitality her entire life. She still is. She's over 75 years old and she loves the work that she does and she loves her customers so much. My first jobs, I don't know if you would still use these terms, but my first jobs were as a busser, a chambermaid, and a waitress. And those early experiences instilled in me the value of treating customers with kindness and with care. It's probably one of the reasons it didn't strike me until I'm like literally saying it right now. It's probably one of the reasons why I was so successful when I was working in HR. People would come to me when they would go to no one else. They would bring me problems that they would never share with their leader, that they would never share with the CEO, that they would never share with their senior team. They would bring it to me because they knew that I would do something with it. Now, I digress, but this background gave me the confidence to provide feedback about how I felt during the interaction. So I made the decision ahead of time to book the service, regardless of how they responded to my feedback, like I mentioned. But I also made it clear that if they wanted to be successful, which they do, that they need to consider the customer experience that people are having. Whether their business is a day old, a month old, 50 years old, I don't care. It doesn't matter. What does matter is the customer experience is crucial. And you can think of customer in context of like the people around you, like everyone is someone else's customer. So, what are the leadership lessons here? I just want to share a couple of them that have come up for me. So, first, I want to talk about empathy and understanding. Now, as leaders, we need to remember that every interaction is an opportunity to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. In this case, the owner was focused on what was easier for them, and that's not necessarily a problem. But they missed the chance to make things easier for me as the customer. That's the first leadership lesson. The second is around communication, because how we communicate our preferences or our processes can make all the difference. The owner's response could have been framed up in a way that acknowledged my request while also explaining their reasons. Clear, empathetic communication is key to ensuring that both parties feel heard, acknowledged, and respected. And that is so important. This day and age where the world is in this moment, I don't know that in my lived experience it has been more heightened as being like one of the most important things as it is right now. There's two more lessons. So there's flexibility and adaptability. So great leaders understand that rigidity can be a barrier to trust and loyalty. And I'm just going to self identify as someone with a high controller, like a high desire to control. This has been my work, is to actually be less rigid and be more open. And in my perception, this is just my perception, this approach, the owner's approach, was rigid, leaving no room for compromise or alternatives, or even a willingness to discuss what they might be. And a little flexibility can go a long way in building positive relationships and ensuring customer satisfaction. Now, lastly, the importance of being customer centric. So I think that in leadership, it's crucial, actually, not even in addition to what I think and believe that in leadership, it is crucial to remember that those we serve, whether they are customers, team members, bosses, clients, vendors, all of them are at the heart of what we do. And by prioritizing their experience, we create environments where people feel valued and supported. So let me talk a little bit about what's the cost of like missed opportunities here. Because what happens when we don't approach interactions with intention, right? It's those missed opportunities which can be significant. The owner's response in this case left a lasting impression on me, reminding me that every interaction counts. Every interaction is an opportunity to lead. And missed opportunities have a ripple effect. When leaders fail to show empathy, communicate clearly, or remain flexible, it creates a culture where people feel undervalued, which then leads to disengagement, which then leads to loss of trust. Like you can just see the spiral and the downward effect from that. So, as leaders, it's our responsibility, like truly hand on heart, to be intentional in every interaction and ask ourselves, are we creating the experience that reflect our values? Are we building trust and strengthening relationships? Like, are we adding to the experience or are we taking away from the experience? And while I don't want to be black and white, there are, of course, the entire spectrum in between. However, as a leader, my sense is if you were to kind of check in with yourself, you would know if how you're showing up and who you're being is adding or detracting from the situation. So let's talk about some strategies for intentional leadership. I have thought about, I think, let me see, there are 5 of them. So I have a few notes in front of me. The first is to listen actively. So when someone comes to you with a request, pause and take time to listen fully before responding. This shows respect to the other person and provides an opportunity for you to ensure that you understand their needs, or you can ask questions that can help you do so. That's the first one. The second one is communicate with empathy. So think about how you can frame your responses in a way that acknowledges the other person's perspective. Explaining the why behind your requests or process, and look for ways to meet in the middle. There are so many ways to meet in the middle. And in this specific example that I'm talking about, there are a few, although depending on the context that you're in, there could totally be more of them. I mean, the first is like, let's start the process over the phone and finish it up in person. The second is like, let's schedule a time to handle the process a little bit more efficiently. Another way of thinking about it is that they could have shared why the in-person booking was preferred, which I now understand why, and the why is not relevant to this conversation, but that could have been super useful to just understand the rationale or their reasons for their request for me to book in person. Another way is the owner could have acknowledged my need for booking over the phone, and even if just that little tiny thing could have happened, my experience would have been entirely different. Instead of feeling disregarded, I would have felt heard. I am truly, honestly not hard to please. Just ask my husband. So another way to think about like just strategies for being intentional is like stay flexible, be open and curious to and about alternative solutions that can work for both parties or all the parties. It doesn't matter. Like, and this is something else that I think was of value that I brought as an HR professional. Someone had asked me this. This is a little sidebar, but somebody asked me this a few weeks ago. What was your superpower as an HR professional? And I'm like, I was the person who was able to see everybody's interests and solve for the win-win-win. Because there truly is a win-win-win. You don't want to be in a position, if you can help it, where people don't feel like what they're wanting or what they're desiring is not even available or not even on the table. So, flexibility shows that you're willing to adapt and meet the needs of those you serve. And this is just my belief about it. But leadership isn't about you. It's not. It's not about you. It's not personal. It is about those you serve. And without them, there would be no need for you. That's just the truth. My entire life, I have been, as a human resources professional, I had been when I was doing that work, wanting to work myself out of a job because it was like, if people could understand how to interact with one another, they truly wouldn't even need this as a profession. I still believe that to be true. I still also believe this to be true as it relates to my work now in the world as a leadership coach, is that if I can support leaders to knowing and teaching them how to find the answers within them, there would be no need for me as a leadership coach. And that would be awesome. There would be other things that I could be interested in. Like there are tons of things that I'm interested in. And there's just such a passion behind the work that I do right now to support leaders, to help them understand that there are more than one way. There's hundreds of ways to do things. There's not just Cynthia's way or your way or anybody else's way. How are we flexible to find the other ways that could be really, really useful? And I think that's so much easier to access when we don't take it personally, when we don't think that it is about me or my response or my skill or my, fill in the blank. So another way to think about how to be intentional is to prioritize the experience. So, always keeping the customer or the team member experience in mind. I'm thinking right now in this moment of my friend Lisa Mitchell because we just riff on conversations about customer experience and client experience. But ask yourself how your actions and decisions will impact their experience and how can you make that experience as positive as possible. So, one of the things that I appreciate about the coaching that I do and just how much growth I've had over the past couple of years is when I am onboarding a new client or we're talking about working together and we think about like what are the goals that they want to achieve, what do they want to be different, what do they want in their life, those sorts of things, and all of that is amazing. And here's the question that I ask them that I get like deer in headlights look, which is, okay, this is amazing, and tell me a little bit about the experience that you want to have as we are engaging in this coaching journey. And it creates such pause because people haven't thought about it. They haven't thought that there are other ways to live and lead their lives other than being stressed out, being pressured, being on the hamster wheel, in the hustle culture. That sort of way of living, I don't know if you've noticed, but people are not as into that anymore. They are opting out of that. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why people are less engaged in their work and a lot of reasons why they're not showing up in ways that they could more powerfully because they want to have a different experience and they don't want to have that like stressed induced experience day after day after day after day. I will also say they maybe haven't figured out how best to handle that in ways where the organization is receiving the value for the compensation that these individuals are receiving. But all this to say, prioritize the experience that you're having, that your team is having, that your leadership teams are having, that your board of directors are having, that your vendor boards are having. Like, think about that. What is the experience we're having here? And is this the one that we want? And then finally, the last one here is to think about like reflecting on your interactions. So it's so crucial to take time to reflect on your daily interactions and consider how they align with your leadership values and look for patterns and identify areas where you can improve. And it was in this space that I received my opportunity to grow today, because I will share with you that one of my patterns showed up because of this interaction. And my pattern was, I'm just not going to book the service. That's just what's going to happen. I'm not going to book the service error anymore. And when I reflected on that, I said, actually, this is going against my values. I am not living and leading in alignment with what I think is valuable and important in the world. And that was such a beautiful opportunity for me to interrupt that pattern, step outside of that old story, and lead by example instead. And it's getting like, so here's the other thing that I would say about that is I have been noticing these patterns. Like literally, I have been excavating these patterns within myself so that I can break them down, because I know that all this is just conditioned thinking. It's all just how I've been taught to think. And there are other ways to think. There are other ways to have an experience as a human. And I am unsubscribing from those sorts of things that don't serve me and the work that I do in the world. And here's why, right? Like leadership isn't just about the big moments. Again, I've talked about this earlier. It's like it's about who we're being and how we show up in every interaction. So for me, by being intentional, empathetic, and flexible, and for you, if you subscribe and if you're listening to this podcast, there's some resonance here. Like there's a reason why you keep coming back and listening. And by being intentional, empathetic, and flexible, we can turn everyday encounters into opportunities to build trust, to strengthen relationships, and create positive experiences for those we lead. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few questions to help you think about how you can apply these insights to your own leadership. You get to decide whether you want to or not, of course. And also, I'm just going to make my invitation. So, how do you currently handle everyday interactions with others? Are there areas where you could be more empathetic or flexible? Can you recall a recent interaction, perhaps, where you might have missed an opportunity to build trust or show understanding? Nothing has gone wrong. You're right on time. But what could you have done differently if you were to do that? Another question is like, how does your communication style impact those you interact with? Are there ways that you could communicate more clearly and respectfully? This is something that, this is just a sidebar, just so you know. My husband and I were having this conversation last night because clear communication is such an opportunity. People think that they are clearly communicating, and in my experience, it just couldn't be further from the truth. People are not communicating clearly what it is that they're wanting or needing from their staff, from their leader, from other people. And it ends up creating like this, it's like expectation. They assume that people know. And then the expectation that they have underneath that assumption is not met. And it just leads to it leads to resentment. It leads to rework. It leads to so many other unhelpful behaviors. So last, well, maybe two more questions. So think about like what ways can you prioritize the experience of those you serve? Whether they're your customers, your team members, or your clients, it doesn't matter. Where can you prioritize that experience? And also, you are a part of that. So this is also investing in you and your experience that you're having. And the last question I have for you to think about is like, what steps could you take to ensure that every interaction reflects your leadership values and philosophy? So again, you get to take it or leave it. Take some time to reflect on these questions, some of these questions, one of these questions, and just consider how can you bring more intention and purpose into your daily interactions. So, with that, I want to say thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Who Are You to Lead Anyway? I hope this conversation inspires you to think about how you can be more intentional in your leadership, even in the smallest moments. Remember, every interaction counts. So, until next time, keep leading with purpose and heart. I'll see you next week. Hey, leader. Thanks for tuning in to the Who Are You to Lead Anyway podcast. I hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your authentic leadership journey. I want to invite you to join my mailing list at www.cynthiajamesoncoach.ca and claim your copy of Your Inner Compass, a guide to charting your course to authenticity. This guide will help you understand what truly matters most to you. My vision is to empower individuals to live and lead lives in harmony with their core values, become catalysts for positive change, and navigate transitions, all while fostering connection and belonging in the world. Lastly, your feedback shapes this show, so I would be honored if you would subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you so much for being a part of this community dedicated to authentic leadership. Together, let's make a meaningful difference in this world.